This is what we are going to discuss. Joining me this evening is international affairs expert and Professor Mohsin Raza Khan. Thank you so much, Mohsin, for joining. And I'm not able to understand that on one hand, Ministry of External Affairs summons the charge d'affaires, Jason Meeks, and on the other hand, you see Prime Minister Modi saying thank you to Donald Trump. What is this? Are we expressing condemnation, or is it a joke with the people of our own country?
So let me clarify. This record that they are speaking about as an elected Prime Minister, this itself is a false flag. Prime Minister Nehru became Prime Minister after an election, a general election in 1945-46. The British held a general election in India, and the Congress party won the majority of seats in that election. So it's not that he was unelected between 47 and 52, as they are claiming. Between 1947 and 1952, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was very much an elected Prime Minister who had won in a general election. So coming to the point at hand, you're absolutely right that we should not have changed our tone so quickly, because then calling the US Deputy Chief of Staff and giving that démarche is meaningless. On one hand, you're giving this kind of a warning or expressing your displeasure, and on the other, you're expressing your pleasure at the congratulations. So it's not going to be taken seriously. In fact, ideally, they should have asked the US ambassador, not the Deputy Chief of Mission, because this should have been registered at the highest possible level. Possibly even sent a message to the...
Do you think that the Ministry of External Affairs has the guts and the audacity to call Sergio Gore and summon him and ask him as to why you are firing at our vessels? Do you think India has the guts to do that, Mohsin?
Unfortunately, they clearly don't. But ideally, they should not only have called Sergio Gore, but they should have also sent in the old days, it would have been a telegram, but whatever, they should have sent a letter of displeasure to the US Secretary of State, to US, who's the US Foreign Minister. They should have sent and expressed at the highest level, because you have lost 3 sailors and you have lost a ship also, because by firing at the engine room, they have disabled the ship, and the ship is quite expensive. It's not a small amount. Not only is the ship expensive, but it would be probably uninsured. It was not probably an insured ship because it was going through a combat zone. So that means the entire loss will be borne by the owners, and of course the majority of the staff. 24 or 23 out of the total 28 people on board. 24, I think, were Indians. So it's you could very much consider this to be an Indian crude ship, even though there were like 2 Pakistanis and 1 Russian and 1 Ukrainian. We have performed, I would say, quite weakly compared to such an aggressive action by the United States, by Trump. We should have protested more openly, more loudly, and it is in keeping with our general foreign policy. We have been kind of rolling over all the time, not taking a hard stance. We have seen that right from the beginning of this conflict also, whether it was the Iranian ship which was sunk right at our coastline, which was going back.
No, but just to give an idea to the viewers, I just want to read out as to what are the details of the 3 vessel incidents. It's just not one. Now, the first incident which took place was of the vessel called MT Marivax. Now, here what the US Central Command, they disabled this Palau flag tanker in the Gulf of Oman. All 24 Indian crew members were rescued safely by Omani authorities. This is incident number 1. Incident number 2, MT Setebello. This vessel was struck by a US missile, killing 3 Indian sailors, about which we are talking right now, and 21 other crew members were rescued. Then the third incident, MV Jalveer. Now, this is another vessel, a Guinea-Bissau flagged asphalt tanker, which came under a similar US military strike, though all 20 Indian crew members remained safe. Now, here, these are the incidents which have happened in the last 10 days. Now, why do you think these kind of attacks are being perpetrated by the American Navy? Can Trump not see this? Can Prime Minister Modi not see this? What is the intention? Is it to teach a lesson to India that stop buying oil from Iran? What is the end goal of these attacks?
On the US's urging, we stopped buying oil from Iran, even though it was quite cheap, as you know. They were giving us they were paying for the insurance, they were paying for the transportation. It was cheap oil. Since 2017, we kept reducing, and we finally cut out all oil purchases from Iran. We left the Shabar port, as you know. Now, under such circumstances, when we are so short of fuel oil, gas, we really need that. And these tankers were actually, in a way, doing a national duty for us. It wasn't, they were not doing some just for their personal gain. US should understand that. If US is our friend, it's our ally, it should understand. For example, would the US do this to an Israeli ship? Would the US fire missiles or shoot down a Israeli ship even if it was getting oil or gas from Iran? No. It would allow some exceptions, and the US has allowed some exceptions because for a long time, the US had not enforced the embargo. You remember in the beginning of the conflict, they were allowing Iran and the Russians also to sell their oil. So they could have allowed us, It seems that repeatedly the US, at least under Donald Trump, is penalizing us, whether it is through tariffs, whether it is through cutting off oil purchases, whether it is through this blockade. There seems to be a trend here, unmistakably, where what precisely is the reason is hard to say, but it could be the fact that they are not happy with the fact that in Operation Sindoor, their role was not acknowledged by the Prime Minister. Sometimes they claim that it's because India was buying oil from Russia. Sometimes they claim because India is a tariff king.
But what do you think, Mohsin, is the message of Donald Trump? Because America, if it is repeatedly attacking and doing military strikes on Indian vessels or rather on Indian sailors, it does go to show that he's trying to send out a message. Now, is this arm twisting into stopping India to buying oil from Russia or Iran? Or is it something else? Because India hasn't protested also in the way it should have done.
You're absolutely right, because there were 3 previous occasions India did not protest. I'm including the 2 in which the Indian ships were attacked, and I'm also including the one in which the Iranian ship was sunk.
They summoned the charge d'affaires only when they realized that 3 sailors have died. That's when they summoned Jason Meeks, the charge d'affaires.
Right. And I'm saying that there are these 2 previous incidents with our ships, and then there was that one sinking of the Iranian ship on our coastline. We should have actually sent the first warning then itself, which we didn't. So there have been 3 previous. Now on this 4th occasion, we have, it's a bit too late, I would say, had we done it on the 1st or 2nd, maybe the 3rd or 4th occasion would not have happened.
No, but this summoning of the charge d'affaires, would you say that this is just a cosmetic exercise? Now, the cameras were not inside. Jason Meeks must have walked in inside the MEA office, and he would have had a cup of tea, few biscuits, cookies, and then come out and just tell the world that, we summoned charge d'affaires.
You're absolutely right. I think even this was done for the media and public consumption. Had this pressure by the opposition or this pressure from social media not have been there, I'm sure the government would have overlooked even this. Now, would the Americans overlook? Now, suppose India was to impose a blockade somewhere and an American ship was to be shot like this, and 3 American sailors were to be killed and the engine room blown up. Would the Americans have accepted that? They would have never accepted it from India. They would have extracted a price from us, either in terms of compensation or in terms of allowing their ships free passage. They would have figured out something. They would have never even done this to an Israeli ship. The Americans would never have done this if it was a close ally of theirs, like Israel or the UK. So it clearly shows that some people have first-class privileges and some people are second and third class. We are far from being a Vishwaguru, unlike what the Prime Minister and the BJP claims. If we are truly Vishwagurus, and forget about Vishwagurus, even if we were self-respecting members of the international community, this should not have happened to us.
No, but would you not see this, because there's a lot of movement on the social media and there are lots of reactions coming in on the social media on this. Would you see this as Trump trying to bring India on its knees as far as the purchase of oil is concerned?
Yeah, he wants us to purchase not only oil from him, but also from Venezuela. That's why Delcy Rodriguez, Venezuela's current leader, the lady who's in charge, had come to India. It was probably been set up by Marco Rubio and Trump's visits, Marco Rubio's visits and Trump's call, that buy oil from Venezuela, because now the US wants to prop up Venezuelan economy, because now it is a protectorate of the US. So yes, they want us to buy from Venezuela, they want us to buy from US. So imagine the transportation costs are halfway across the world. They don't want us to buy from next door, or even from Russia, which is giving us heavily discounted oil. So yes, it could definitely be, but it also shows that they don't hold us in high respect. They don't have high regard for us. It shows that they are dismissive of India.
No, but to say that can America absolve itself by saying that no, the vessels were carrying some other country's flag, like in one of the cases it was Palau flag
Palau.
vessel. Then there was some other country's on another vessel there was some other country's flag. And do we assume that America didn't know that there were Indian sailors on these vessels?
Difficult to say, but most international ships carry other countries' flags. Usually they are small countries like Panama or Palau or something, because they have tax benefits in registering in those zones. I think they would have had some idea, because when you're talking to the ship, you know where it is headed. So the ship will tell you, we are heading to, say, India, or we are 24 Indians on board. There is some communication to and fro.
No, but there are already, I think, close to 17 or 18,000 people who are stranded. In fact, the sailors who are stranded in the Strait of Hormuz. Hasn't the government, the Modi government, hasn't it spoken to Donald Trump about their safety? We've already lost 3 who've just died today. I don't know how many have been killed. They must have gone unreported. Nobody knows about it. We haven't heard from the government. There's no clarity actually on this.
Not only that, may I tell you something even more shocking? Usually, if you are trying to stop a ship in a blockade, you give a warning to the crew to come on deck, so that the crew can come on deck, and then you can attack the engine room, etc. That's one way. So that way they are safe, and then you fire. I don't think such a warning was given where they were told to come on the deck. That's why those 3 have died. They've lost their life in the missile that was fired by the US. The second way is you send a boarding party by a boat. You can send, or by helicopter, you can drop a boarding party on this ship. That also the US didn't do. Okay, if that they didn't do, at least they should have given a prior warning that we are about to fire. Come on deck. That it would have saved those 3 lives. The ship would have been lost in any case, but it was. And now the bigger problem is the ship was carrying oil. Imagine the US keeps talking about, not this administration, but previous ones, about the environment. If the ship had spilled the oil, even now there is a danger that the ship might spill oil, because it's a heavy ship. In order to tow it,
no, the ship Marivax. Yesterday, when we were talking, and when there were reports how that ship Marivax had got a big hole after the engine room of that vessel was attacked, and there were descriptions all over the media. So I'm sure if there is a hole inside that ship, then the oil must have spilled somewhere. That spillage is not reported so far.
Yeah. So there are 2 kinds of spillage possible. One is the oil that the ship is carrying in its containers. The other possibility is that in the engine room also there is diesel and oil that, if you hit, can ignite and also spill out. So I don't know. It's probably the engine oil, and that's not a lot of oil, but still, it can also create a large enough oil slick. So the US is not
this kind of an incident where we've lost our 3 own people, and now summoning charge d'affaires you don't even take up with the highest echelons of the American administration. What does it go to show about the Modi government? I mean, how seriously are they taking the lives of their own people? And Prime Minister Modi is busy celebrating, BJP is busy celebrating and saying that, look, he has surpassed Nehru's records. For what? I just don't understand.
And they have not even surpassed, as I had explained earlier, they have not even surpassed Nehru's record. But they have made a big show. So this is part of their, what should I say, propaganda, you want to call it their showmanship, that every few weeks or months they have to make a big event because they don't have any real events to celebrate. They don't have any real achievements to celebrate. They'll have to come up with some of these things to stay in the public eye. And you're right that the reality is something else. The reality is being shown by how the US is treating you versus the make-believe in which you believe that you are Vishwa Guru and have surpassed Nehru, etc. It would be difficult for the US to have done this, say, to Nehru. Could you imagine the US doing this in Nehru's time?